Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. We're here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 Eastern Time, and the call-in number, if you have a question, is 646-200-4169. And at any time, if you have a question, you hit 1, and it lets us know that you want to ask something. And we're glad that you're all here and that you're listening. And I'm your co-host, Jeanie, and Michael is on the line. Michael?
Welcome. We're delighted that you're here. Our topic, as usual, our overriding topic of everything we talk about on the show has to do with forgiveness. It's called MindShifters Radio because support groups that work with the tools that Jeanie and I teach around the country and around the globe are called MindShifters support groups. And so our radio show has the same idea, and that is of starting a support group to work with the tools that we teach and offer support for people who have questions. It's a little bit of a different way of thinking and dealing with life than the average person does, and so we are here to support your questions, your thoughts, your process, and your acquisition of the tools for healing. The primary source for our information is the ancient Aramaic language. The ancient Aramaic language, interestingly enough, though it's not a religious language, is the root language of at least 5 of the world's major religions. I believe the reason that it's sourced at least 5 of the world's major religions is because it's a physics language, and they understood how the world worked from the view of the perspective of physics and physiology and genetics and energy. And so our topic is today, purpose, personal power, commitment. We've had a discussion going on for a couple of days about this idea of purpose and how energy systems do not bring through more energy by efforting, but by aligning. And so we're talking about aligning with our purpose as we move forward in the world. David and Terry, are you guys on the line yet?
No, they're not.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, then we're just on our own and rock and roll, move forward with this idea of purpose. And one of the core ideas that we work with in this work is that the output of our minds shows us just a tiny fragment of what's actually going on in the world at any given moment, the very smallest fragment. And that output, the pictures, the world that our mind shows us in the vernacular is the perceptual world. So if you've ever wondered, people, let's say, for instance, you sit in a courtroom and you listen to 6 different people testify about an accident, and you wonder if any 2 of them were at the same accident. How does that happen? How do you get such differing views on something? Well, no 2 people are looking at the same world. When you look out through your so-called body's eyes, you're looking at the output of your mind. You're not looking at what's out there. You're looking at your mind's replica of what's out there. And, of course, its replica is based on its own content. There's some interesting Harvard research that says that in the time frame where 10,000 brain cells fire, that is, there are literally 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity in the mind, the maximum amount of information that goes into the mind's output is 9 bits of data. That's it. And in that same time frame, there are approximately 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity. So we look at a 9-bit mind, and underneath it, 10,000 brain cells are firing. So, of course, all that has to happen is a different 9 bits of data fire for you, then fire for me, and our realities are going to be different. We'll look at the same object of attention, but we'll think that it's a totally and completely different situation because my output, the output of my mind, my perception, is not the same as your perception. And so everybody has a different reality all the time. No 2 of us ever see the same things. What's that got to do with purpose? Well, the reason that's key when it comes to purpose is because perception, that is the output of your mind, is the servant of purpose. Your mind will organize data according to the purpose you have for a particular situation. Let's say, for instance, someone who holds that they live in a world of threat and fear, then they hold the purpose of making sure that they're safe in every circumstance. And so they'll have a certain view of reality where a person who doesn't hold that will see things, experience things totally and completely differently. If someone lives in a world where they've always been blamed and so they're always looking for somebody to blame, then they'll look at a situation and where no one else will even conceive of blame, they'll be in that process of blame because their mind, if they live in a world of I'm right, you're wrong, it's settled, why argue, then the mind always has to show I'm right and you're wrong. And once you realize this idea of purpose that we're speaking of, primary and secondary, and yesterday we covered the idea that our primary purpose is to develop a viable, conscious spiritual body, that you're not a physical being, you're a spiritual being, and the functioning purpose of your mind is to support you in experiencing your life as a spiritual being. But if you live in a culture that's told you, oh, you're nothing but a piece of protoplasm, you're not much different than a cow, which is kind of, a lot of the scientific or so-called scientific perspective today in the world, then people don't see themselves as they truly are and don't have the opportunity to live their lives as real, true spiritual beings. They live their lives as something less than that. So purpose becomes a major key. And yesterday we covered an exercise for bypassing the brainwash of the culture that really wants to run virtually everybody's life. And the basic message of the culture is, first of all, you don't have a purpose because you're just a chunk of protoplasm, except what I want you to do. And so just go get a job, make money, do what I want from you, is the essential message of most of the world to most people. And the truth is, you do have a purpose, and it's way beyond getting a job, just over broke. It has to do with fulfilling something that you're here to do. And so our exercise, the one we described, and you can pick up the worksheet from the website, whyagain.com. It's WHYAGAIN.com. www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. You can download the Purpose Worksheet, scroll down the page a little bit, and you'll see it there. And at the top, you'll see where it speaks of the primary purpose. And then secondary, we ask you to make a list, and that listing is 10 unique characteristics that you have. The second list is 10 things you enjoy doing. And then the third is your vision of a perfect world. Once you've got those three completed, then what we ask you to do is to synthesize them into a statement where they align with each other. So, for instance, in a simple format, I love to research, I love to travel, I love to teach. And my vision of a perfect world in a short form is that there's enough for everybody to have it all. So if I were to synthesize those things I enjoy doing with those things, those talents that I have, and my vision of a perfect world, a simple statement of that would be, I now use my ability to research, synthesize information, to teach and travel the world, and support people in knowing that there's enough for everybody to have it all. That would be a simple purpose statement out of those three. And so our invitation is that you synthesize the things you hold as talents, the things you enjoy doing, with your vision. How do you align those things? And that gives you a pretty concise statement of what your purpose is. Jeanie, do you have any thoughts on what happened for you when you got clear with your purpose when you first were introduced to and did that exercise?
Well, I was working for a pharmaceutical company at the time, and it served its purpose. I mean, it was one of the higher paid positions, and I was a single mom, so it definitely served its purpose. But then once I became more aware of what direction I needed to head, then, yeah, it totally changed. You know, I no longer work at the pharmaceutical company. I do spiritual guidance, one-on-one work with people, helping them to get more in alignment with their purpose and to do the forgiveness worksheets. And so, yeah, and everything then that you decide to do, like you said, you think, okay, does this support my purpose? And if it does, then I do it, and if it doesn't, I don't.
Yeah, it makes things simple, and one of the things that occurs when people get clear on their purpose is that sometimes they'll end up doing things they don't like doing because they've said, okay, I am going to do my purpose, and if this is something I don't particularly like to do but it supports my purpose, I move forward and I do it. And things that perhaps in the past you've liked and enjoyed doing that don't serve your purpose will start to drop away. So it really becomes a key for behavior. And when your behavior is on purpose, that's a part of the alignment that brings you into personal power. When you think about an energy system, if you've got a television antenna up on the roof, that television antenna is oriented in the incorrect direction, you don't get a very good signal. Picture isn't very good. And the reason is because it's out of alignment. When you turn that antenna the right way and align it, all of a sudden, you get a full flow. You get a powerful signal. Well, in precisely the same way, when we block out our true purpose, when we're out of alignment with our true purpose, we tend to do things that don't support what we're really about. And when we do things that don't support what we're really about, when we're out of alignment, we don't get a full flow of energy through our structures. And there tends to be a lack of energy flow. There's a cool piece that I like to read in the workshop, and it's written by George Bernard Shaw, and he speaks about purpose. And those who are out of alignment with their purpose tend to be, what would the term be? Somewhat less than enlivening people to be around. And I like the way George Bernard Shaw says it here as he describes people who really aren't fulfilling their purpose. So here's what he says. This is the true joy in life, the being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, the being a force in nature instead of a feverish, selfish clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. George Bernard Shaw says, I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live it, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. So there's a man who knew what his purpose was and functioned out of his purpose and had aliveness. When we're out of alignment, because there isn't a full flow of energy through our structures, there's a tendency to just kind of wind down, to to go into a dis-ease state, a state of weakness, a state of complaint, a state of trauma. One who's functioning out of their purpose, even if things aren't going the way they want them to do, they're going to be alive. And our goal here is to support each person on the planet being in full aliveness. So, Jeanie, any questions in the chat room or any callers?
Well, the chat room has no questions right now. Patrick said that he's been redefining his core values for 3 days to better understand and align with his purpose, and it's been a very empowering topic to listen to it for the last couple of days. I'm having difficulty with the switchboard, so I'm not sure if there's any callers out there or not. If they are, if they'll just hang on a minute, I'm going to sign on a different computer and see if I can get it going better on that computer.
Oh, okay. Thanks, sweetie. Patrick, by the way, I've tried to reach you a couple of times. We've been playing telephone tag. We will catch up sooner or later, I am sure. And, the core values become key because, of course, the world says, oh, just go get a job and make money. And so many people live their lives and will do anything. I mean, they will actually literally give up their human lives in order to make money. And when we speak about human life, we're not talking about the fact that a body can get up and walk and talk. There are many who are not human, who are not alive, that can walk and talk. But human life is, we define in this work, the active presence of love. And we arrive at that definition by asking people, and we've asked this question, people all over the globe, what would be one word that you would use to describe a newborn child when you hold it? And everybody's word is always the same. It's always some variation on the theme of love. And so I offer to people the reason why everybody's definition is the same. I had a discussion with somebody a few weeks ago, and they were ready to argue about, well, how do you tell what human life is? And I said, well, it's easy to end that discussion. Hold a newborn. And it was like this person was gearing up for a big argument, and instantly the conversation stopped. It was like, oh, I get it. Okay. Yeah, this is human life. The active presence of love is human life. And if your purpose isn't in alignment with your human life, oh, you may live in sensation. You may have a lot of adrenaline flow. I know I've worked with a lot of people who've been in war and totally, completely out of alignment with their purpose. But they get off on the adrenaline rush, and so they're having a blast killing people, And anybody who thinks that a human life is capable of that, think again, because it's simply not. We have to give up human life in order to live in that realm. And so to come back to real experiences that are based in love become key in the process of healing ourselves as human beings and living and functioning out of our purpose. The things that we need to align, there are several things that need to be on purpose in order for a real human life to be experienced and be expressed. Of course, the first one is that of love, that love is present, that love is active. And many people will, well, gee, but my whole world, my whole life has been drama, and I lived in a family system with abuse, rage, drugs, and alcohol, and just nastiness. It's like, well, okay. So you've chosen a lifetime to really work through some things in order to reclaim your human life. But I'll tell you what, there's no prize more precious than reclaiming your human life. And in some family systems and in some cultures, it's a major piece of work to do that reclamation. But it's a work that can be done. And the reason why this work that I've been developing for the last 40 years, comes out of the ancient Aramaic because I've never seen anyone who put it together as clearly and as crisply and as functionally as was done in the Aramaic. Now, sadly, in the West, what most people get to see of the Aramaic teachings is through a Greek filter. And the Greek filter simply, how can I say it? It just doesn't even come close to what's spoken of in the Greek. For instance, in the Aramaic, there's a conversation about the Creator, and the conversation goes along these lines. The Creator is our Father, and the Creator is love. And it is our Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, and in fact sends us what we want before we even ask for it. Interesting description of our Creator. You go to the Greek way of looking at life, and the Creator is someone to be feared and terrified of, someone who's out to get you. And, of course, that's just representative of the whole pantheon of Greek gods. This is a group of people who, they rape their own children, they murder their own parents. It's bizarre. And so to try to speak of the teachings that come out of the Aramaic in Greek is a pretty tough thing to do. And that's why we're continuously going back and working to understand what is in the Aramaic, and then to put that understanding into a format that can be used to achieve results. And the result here that we're looking for with this particular segment, these last two shows, and then today's show, I assume will complete the purpose topic today. The whole idea is to come into such alignment that we experience personal power. And I define personal power, the best definition I've been able to come up with over the years, is that personal power is the ability to be continuously aware of and function out of your highest guidance. If you have a peak experience, a peak moment, and you really get a hold of who you are and what your life is about, you only have personal power if you can maintain awareness of that and then do behaviors based on that. And so personal power comes through this energy system that aligns when primary purpose is at the very top of the list, to develop a viable, conscious, spiritual body. Secondary purpose, what is my vision of how the world works and how do I use, or how the world could potentially work? And it's the type of vision that most people will call utopian. If you go back into the ancient Aramaic scriptures, you hear them saying, without a vision, my people perish. People are destroyed if they lose their capacity to envision what's possible in the world. And, of course, we all come in knowing what's possible, and oftentimes the pragmatists in the world will warn us that that's utopian and not possible. So just forget it, son. Just go get a job, make money, beat up whoever you need to, step on whoever you need to. That's what will get you ahead in the real world. Well, it might get you a lot of money, but it'll destroy your human life. And without that, what good is it? What good is all the money in the world if you don't have a human life? So to be aware of and function out of our highest guidance means that our guidance is going to come from our primary and secondary purpose in alignment. That means that our talents are going to be used in a way that support our primary purpose. The things we enjoy doing, we will consciously, purposely align with our primary purpose. Our vision will be aligned with our primary purpose. And then once we've done that, there's a part of the brain, in the front of the brain, that has a filter that was called Rachma over it in Aramaic. And the word Rachma is a filter over intentions that allows only intentions keyed to love to be used by your mind in forming its goals. So intentions are going to then come into alignment with this primary purpose. As our intentions are keyed to love, our goals are keyed to love, our primary purpose is to develop this viable, conscious, spiritual body, which is a human life, which is love. And so our goals are going to be aligned and in harmony with love. Those goals then will engage our whole belief system. And we will begin to do the work that it takes to restructure the belief system of our generations. There's an interesting story about in the ancient scriptures about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years. And, here's a journey that should have taken about 2 weeks, and 40 years later, they're just arriving at the destination. Why? Because that desert is nothing but a code word for the unconscious, people wandering out of alignment with their true purpose. They wander and tend to function out of hostility and fear. And the average person doesn't start to figure that out for the first 40 years of their lives. And when they do, they wake up and go, I need to align my life with my true being. I was out seeing a practitioner this morning, and there was a young man in the waiting room, man about 40, in the waiting room, and there was an alternative practitioner. And I just struck up just a very brief conversation with this person, and he was talking about how, I didn't used to believe in any of this stuff. I used to be pretty skeptical and an angry person. And he said, I started to get in alignment with energy work and alternative medicine. He said, and boy, oh boy, when I look at the life I used to live, how crazy was that? Alignment of our beliefs with our primary, secondary purpose becomes key. And that means that there's going to be a lot of forgiveness work to do. And forgiveness, in the context we're speaking of it, does not mean I'm going to let you off the hook because there's something painful happening inside of me. Forgiveness, in the ancient Aramaic, is the tool with which you change what's happening inside of you. So if you and I interact in the Greek system of thought, people would say, well, they made you angry, and so just forgive them. So let's say I turn to somebody, you caused all this anger and rage and pain inside of me, but, and even though it's all your fault, I'll forgive you. I've done nothing to change the root of the pain inside of me, of the rage, the fear, whatever's going on. In Aramaic, you'd never be invited to forgive another, and if you want to tap into the forgiveness process as it was taught from the Aramaic, jump on the website, www.whyagain, that's whyagain.com. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a thing that says Download Worksheets. First item down is a set of instructions for doing the worksheet process. Second item down is a 7-step reality management worksheet. That's the forgiveness process that we teach. Start to work with that process to unload or remove from your mind the realities and the data that's out of alignment with your true human life. That's going to be a part of the process as you start to key into your purpose, and that's why we suggested, I think the last 2 days, both days, we suggested that you make sure that you carry a copy of your purpose statement with you continuously, because there's going to be things that are going to drop away as you gain clarity, as you remove the brainwash of the culture that said just go get a job, make money, forget this functioning as love stuff, just get in there and get your share, get it, be greedy, whatever. Those are things that are going to have to fall away in order to align with your purpose. And as you do, your whole physiology is going to shift to a center. And these things that we're talking about aligning, they are the things that are at the center of a human life. And so hostility and fear is going to begin to drop away. It's purposely, consciously going to be recognized as something that defiles perception. And you want to move away from and undo defiled perception. And that is any perception, any output from your mind that's based in hostility or fear defiles your perception. When Jeanie first opens the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, she always asks the question, how many have ever held a newborn child? And, of course, the descriptors of the newborn. What if you put that newborn into a word, would your descriptor be? And it's always something based in love. And then she asks the second question, and that is, how many have ever done something they regret? And what were you feeling when you did what you regretted? And the answer is always some form of hostility or fear, because we're in a state of reduced intelligence in hostility or fear, because hostility or fear defiles our perception. And it's time for us to wake up to who we are and to cleanse our perception so that we see life through a clear lens that's connected to love. And Jeanie just signaled me that we have a caller on the line. So let's hear from our caller and see what direction they're wanting to take their comment or question.
It's actually Reverend Jane. Hi, Lady Jane.
Hi.
Well, how are you, young lady?
I've got such good news to share with you all.
Oh, tell us.
Yes. Just a little bit of background. I have two daughters, Lisa and Lynn, and one of them had been to your workshop, and they know about worksheets. And having just finished, I think it was 600 I just finished, I was stomping around saying, how come this isn't working, and how come that isn't working? And I remember David saying, I mentioned something about my family, the girls, and he said, gee, that sounds really good. This was back a couple months ago. And all of a sudden I get a phone call. I started a work group here in my home called Core Issues, started last week. So lo and behold, I was exposed to my own core issues. And my daughter calls and she says, we're going to meet in April as a family, and she said, there's some work we need to do. And and she said, let's start with forgiveness. Well, she was on the phone for an hour with me, and I was tracking with her, like, you know, what that's like when you track. And everything she said, I forgave, she forgave. It was like a light came on everywhere. And then I talked to Lynn. She was in the same place. So all of that, and we all agreed, had to do with my willing to work on the worksheets, even though I didn't want to. So it was like you could just feel all that stuff lifting up. And I knew it was the worksheets, and I knew I couldn't wait to tell you all about it since I'd been complaining that they weren't working. So I'm the first to admit, you know, that I was wrong, but how wonderful. You know, when people ask you, how many do you have to do? And when Jesus said, you know, 70 times 7, or what is it, 7? Anyway, how many?
7 times 70, right? Yeah.
So here we are. Whatever that one worksheet was the one that opened that hole everywhere. I mean, it was just like being born again. And you know how enthusiastic I can get about things. And and I had ache and pain in my body. It was in my behind. And I said I felt like I was kicked in the butt. And she was working with me to uncover what that hidden energy was in my body that I'd been covering up for years. I mean years, that I didn't know was there. Things that she brought up I didn't know, but from my perception it wasn't true. But getting from her and seeing it, it was all about forgiving myself for feeling guilty that I didn't even know I had.
So forgiving your guilt.
forgiving your guilt, removing guilt from your body. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, guilt, shame, whatever the issues that were hidden. And say I got the worksheet out, and where it says that hidden parts of our mind.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden it decided not to be hidden anymore. It was like boom, boom, boom. And when I work, I work. Yeah. Anyway, I was the whole reason sharing it on the radio was that if anyone really wants to start to know how things can work, do the worksheets. Get as much as you can. And, of course, I've been in this business with you for about 8 years, and it takes as long as it takes. It may take someone else 3 months, but it took me that long to get where I am today.
Right.
So I don't know whether David's on or not, but, he's the one that sells you when you're talking to him about continuing on doing them.
Right.
When you don't want to, that's the time that you need to do them.
That you most need to do them, absolutely.
Right. So that's why I'm calling today. I don't have a question. I have an affirmation to say that I'm so happy to be a part of Heartland and the work. The Lord knows what it'll be like in a couple of years. I may have sinned before anybody.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to share it.
Stay on for a minute, Jane. Let us introduce you a little bit. For those who haven't met Lady Jane, or we often call her Saint Jane, Jane is a Unity minister who has a church called True Light in Anderson, Indiana, and has been doing this work. She had invited us to Anderson about 8 years ago. We've been back there several times and done workshops and such at our church. And Jane's been to Heartland several times over the years. And this summer, Jane was there, this past summer, And David had created this Building the Brain Cells game and challenged you, right, to do the Building the Brain Cells, which is 5 worksheets a day for 40 days, and to be committed to that. And you're just saying that you're now at worksheet, you're tracking in your worksheet number 600. And so I'd offer that it hasn't really taken you 8 years. It's really taken you just a few months since you were there back in, I guess that was September, October?
Yes.
Really, it's taken you that few months of committed work to get to that next level. And that's what it takes. You know, people will talk about I want things to change, I want things to change, I want things to change. But the willingness to do something different is definitely key in the process, and that's just so awesome. I know that you've been working around the issues with your girls for a long time. Congratulations, Jane. That's
Thank
really
you.
Powerful to hear.
Thanks for being on the radio, too.
All right. Oh, we are so blessed to have this show now. I really thank Carol for Carol Guy is the one who owns the Angel Radio Network and invited us to be a host in the Angel Radio Network. And so here we are 5 days a week from 2 to 3 o'clock on Blog Talk Radio. And also on Tuesdays, if you're in South Florida, WWNN, 1470 AM, we do a 1-hour show every Tuesday on Holistic Lifestyles Radio, and we thank John Hollis for creating the space for us to have an hour per week. Broadcasting on a 50,000-watt station in South Florida, covers the whole coast of Florida, and so people can tap in. And our commitment has always been to be on the support team of every mind, heart, and being on the planet. And in the past, it's been kind of difficult when we're in a city and then we move to another city. And, of course, if a support group doesn't start, then people are kind of left on their own. And we are always encouraging people to start local support groups. Even if you don't know anything about doing the work, start a support group. Order a set of DVDs, start playing the DVDs, start working with people with worksheets, and watch the miracles that happen. But it's been a real blessing for us to get this radio show started so that now every week, every being on the planet who's got a computer or a telephone can tap in, get online with us, or get on the phone, and we just want to share this work with everybody that we can share it with and make it available. And Jane, part of doing that is the support that we've received from you, and we certainly appreciate that over the years. It has been awesome, and we're proud to be sharing the planet with you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Love you. Okay, blessings.
And David is now online.
Hey there, David. I bet that warmed your heart to hear that little story from Lady Jane. Always to hear Lady Jane warms anyone's heart. Oh, David, you're all dark.
David, we can't hear you. You're like just garbling.
You're like, you sound like a frog. Maybe hang up and dial back in again. Try it again.
Okay.
So we were talking about. Oh, go ahead, sweetie.
I was just going to say, so while we were waiting on David to call back, some of the conversation in the chat room started out as, that we're all here on the planet to be love and light and everything, but that's more like our primary purpose, and that we do have a secondary purpose, and that it's, something that we're actually to do on this planet other than just sit and shine, and how we can do that. And then the conversation kind of went on over to wanting to fix the world and how we can't do that. We just have to fix what's in us, what comes up at each moment. Okay, David, you're back on.
Wonderful. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Much better, David. So I bet that warmed the cockles of your heart when you heard Jane speaking about her experience.
Oh, it's always wonderful to hear Jane, because Jane is committed to doing her work. And with my stuff and, my purpose and my support in life is to encourage and support people in doing their work. That's in doing their primary purpose and their secondary purpose. That is my purpose. And so when I hear her and, I get to talk with her at least once a week and sometimes more, and to know that she is doing her work, and I get to be part of watching her have these experiences, and I get to be that experience with it. You know, it's so interesting. There's a phrase that I picked up: do the things that need to be done so you can do the things that you love to do. And I thought, I've been like a little kid most of my life. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I don't want to have to do these other things. When you talk about, Michael, about that you like to travel and you like to put on the workshops and everything, then as you know, I love to do that as well. Well, there are some things that I need to do in order to do that. Some of the times, I've got to clean the truck or clean the van out. I've got to load the things up. I've got to carry things in. I have to do all of this. Those are things that I need to do in order to do the things that I love to do. And often sometimes when I talk with people, it's like, well, I don't want to do that. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, there's some things that we need to do in order to do the things we love to do. When you first started the talk today, I was reminded of when I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was outdoors on this beautiful summer day. They had opened up a new mall in this neighborhood, and they had an outside amphitheater that people would come there and perform and do different things. And I remember watching this one entertainer, that he was a magician, he was a clown, and he was doing all of these incredible things. And I've often wondered, or would look at other people and say, well, if I could do that, then I would be happy. Or maybe that's what it is that I need to be doing. And I remember that he said he was a trained pharmacist and making big bucks. And he was a kind of young fellow at this particular time. He wasn't even 30 years old, and he had got this insight that doing that type of work was not going to bring him happiness. And so he stopped doing that, stopped making the money, went to do this work of performing for people. Now, that may seem like, well, how is that a purpose in life for, sometimes there's spiritual gurus, I want to be up here and doing this particular thing. And it's not about that. I discovered that through watching this fellow, as well as another friend of mine that I met in Chicago several years ago, and I was at a healing workshop, or not a healing workshop, it was a healing group. They actually get together every week on Wednesdays, and they offer their healing services to anybody that wants to come in, free, just to do that. And they accepted a little donation. My first visit to this was with a fellow that could never go unnoticed. He was about 7'1", weighed about 300 pounds, and he was a muscular type guy. And he's sitting there, he's huge, and he's sitting there reading this little paperback book. And I asked him what he did, and he read tarot cards. And I looked at this guy, and it's like, this guy's 7 foot tall, 300 pounds, and he reads for a living. And he had been in the corporate world. He was an executive. He was one of these people. And he gave all of that up. And what he did now was to do tarot cards and readings and healing energy. Now, whether a person believes in that or not, it's irrelevant. It is about that he let go of doing what it is that he was doing for a living. And he had told me he had been doing this for free with his friends for years. And then he decided to walk away from everything to do what it is that he loved to do. Of what he knew was he was tapped into doing it. So, as it is with me, I do the things that I need to do in order to do what it is that I love to do. To discover what it is that I love to do, I sometimes have to do this thing called forgiveness. I have to let go of and practice. And, often, Michael, in this work, when I hear people think that they have to delve into something and to dig something up that has all this pain and agony and all of it, and it really isn't that. It's just the little small things daily to do the worksheets each day about the smallest of irritations that then opens up the space for me to really recognize what it is that I want to do with my life. And I think that everyone is that way. So that's my feedback. Thank you, Lady Jane, because she is committed to doing her work, and we do have Building the Brain Cells, and if you want to commit to doing 5 worksheets a day, great. And she's committed to doing 1 worksheet a day, minimum of that. You can do more than that. So the game opens up the space for people at whatever level that they're at and whatever level of commitment that they want to make, that we're there to support them. And you have to commit to it. And so go on, take a look at that. Commit to doing 1 worksheet a day, just 1. And I assure you that after 10 days, things will shift for you. Promise you. That's just what happened. So anyway,
sure, and those examples you use, David, are perfect examples of how behavior changes once we start to discover what our purpose is, and we start to function and align our behaviors with purpose. I know when I first started doing this work, it was a part-time interest. I had actually had a friend who was in the real estate business, and his boss required him to do this course on spiritual development. And he came back from this course. It was a weekend thing. This goes back 40 years ago now. It was a weekend thing, and he absolutely hated it. He thought it was stupid. He thought it was ridiculous. But he just told me a couple of things about it, and I knew I had to be there. I knew I had to participate in that. And I was in the business world at this point. I had 3 businesses. I had 60 employees. I had a penthouse apartment in one city. I had a Mark III and an Eldorado sitting in my driveway. I was single. I had a home in 2 other cities. And I started to do this work. And as I became aware of what my purpose was, I realized that being in that business world and being about making money had nothing to do with it. And so totally and completely turned my life upside down, as you're speaking about with this fellow who was 7'1" and was an executive, and it changed his life around. You start to function as a real human being, and as you do that, everything has to change, those things that need to align. And we kind of started a list of the things that need to align, and I'd like to continue with that list of what needs to go forward, and that is that primary, secondary.
Michael?
Yes.
Michael? Yeah, may I add that what I heard you say, and it's true that there seems to be this thing out there that and this is my projection of it, my perception of it, that a lot of people have been told and guided to do what it is that you love to do. And I offer that in order to do what it is that I love to do, or to do what it is that you love to do, you'll have to do some things that you don't want to do, that are on contrary to what it is that you don't want to do, that I need to do the things that need to be done. And like what Jane was saying, it wasn't like that she was really eager to do worksheets. She did the worksheets because that's what needed to be done in order for her to discover these things. So, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? It's that do the worksheets, use the materials, use the tools, whatever one. It doesn't matter which one. Do one of them, though. Pick something and do that, and then from that will come, there's the aha, without seeing it. So I just wanted to emphasize that is just so important. And that you did say that, so please, if you'll go on, I just wanted to get that in.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely you got to do something different than what your bloodline and what your inclinations are from your belief systems. You're going to have to change that, and that's why we want to look at what are the things that you could be about changing. Well, if you haven't been cognizant of your primary purpose, you are now. If you haven't tapped into your secondary purpose, then if you've done that worksheet, you've begun to see clearly what your secondary purpose is. And then to align your talents, the things you enjoy doing, your vision, your intentions, your goals. They're all the things we've talked about so far. And then underneath goals, once you bring goals into alignment with that primary purpose of the experience of love and developing a viable, conscious spiritual body, then you bring your belief systems and your decisions into alignment as you correct the contents of your mind and bring it into harmony with love. Your decisions, that is the automatic part of your mind that feeds things to you, will be based in love. And in doing all of this, you'll be developing one of what we called yesterday the 5 smooth stones, and that is that of choice. And your choices will start to align with your higher purpose. And all of these things aligning are just like, lining up the television antenna to bring in a stronger signal. And so once you've brought your choices into alignment, so you're presented with the situation, somebody says, hey, how about if we go rob a bank tomorrow? We need money. And you say, well, thanks. That may be in line with your purpose, but it doesn't fit for me. You make different choices, even though something might hold what appears to be a reward for you. If it doesn't align with your purpose, you say, no, thanks. So then come thoughts and feelings that you restructure all of the thoughts that are held within your family system. That means you're going to have a giant chunk of work to do. That means there's going to be a significant amount of forgiveness work to be done because we all come from bloodlines with all kinds of crazy things that never, ever even belonged in human experience. And so thoughts become something that become conscious and are thought out of a mind of love rather than simply out of the past and out of what's been structured into our physiology. And we bring our thoughts into alignment with love. And if you find yourself thinking thoughts of hostility, rage, loss, grief, fear, pain, failure, there's your worksheet work. There's your next topic. And if you don't have the reality management worksheet in front of you yet, please jump on www.whyagain.com. On the right-hand side, go to Download Worksheets. The first item is a set of instructions for how to do that reality management worksheet. The second item is the actual 7-step worksheet. Download that worksheet, and when you find yourself with thoughts that are out of alignment with love, there's where you tap in and begin to do your forgiveness work. As you do that and your thoughts come into alignment with love, then your physiology is going to experience feeling that love. And out of those thoughts and feelings are going to come words that are based in love, rather than the careless use of words. If you go back into the ancient Aramaic, you hear the man named Yeshua. He's popularly known as Jesus, but his name was not Jesus, the copy of the Greek god Zeus. His name was Yeshua. But you hear Yeshua saying the power of life and death is in your words. Now, we talked about listing the attributes of human life, and those words are always about love. That's what we put on the left-hand side of the board in our workshop. And then we talk about what people say they were feeling when they did what they regretted, and that's always based in some form of hostility or fear, and we put that on the right side of the board. And so when you find yourself stuck in feelings and thoughts that come from hostility and fear, you begin to change those. That's your work of coming into alignment. If your personal power, if you really want personal power, again, that's the ability to be continuously aware of and function out of your highest guidance. If you want personal power, you've got to align with that higher understanding of life, your words, your thoughts, your decisions, your behaviors. The realities that come forward in your mind as you do this realignment work will support you in your primary purpose. That's the whole the whole reason for perception, for the output of the mind, is to be a servant of purpose. And again, as we said earlier in the show, if you come from a bloodline where it's about, fighting and scrapping and negativity and hostility and fear, then you might think your purpose is to protect yourself. So your mind is always serving up something based in that hostility or fear, trying to protect yourself. And so we're going to do the work that it takes to shift that so that every reality output from your mind is based in love. When that happens, your behaviors will begin to align with love. And as you do that, as you experience yourself as a being of love, you'll start to move more and more in the direction of taking care of yourself. That means you're going to do things like eat a dietary regimen that really supports your human body. You're going to tap into what are the foods that support human life? What are the foods that destroy human life? And all the way down to your diet. And that diet is going to be something then, the food that you eat, will empower you and strengthen you to move to the next level. And all of a sudden, as you see all of these things falling into alignment, conversations like the one that Lady Jane shared with us a few minutes ago, where she's been doing her work, and I know she's changed her dietary regimen, been really doing a lot, and all of a sudden, here are her children responding. You know, when I'm talking about adult children, her girls are in their 40s, and here they are, adult children. That's kind of an oxymoron, isn't it? But here they are responding to that new energy that Mom is bringing into their family system. What an awesome gift to give your family system. And we talked yesterday about the video. You know, Google the video, The Ghost in Your Genes, and watch that online. It's awesome that medicine and scientific research is finally discovering what was known in the Aramaic thousands of years ago was that if we didn't have the active presence of love, well, actually, they haven't gone so far as to discovering this. They're just saying, we know this happens now. I'm actually planning on communicating with the folks in the video to introduce them to the ancient Aramaic teachings about genetics that say the sins of the father are passed, into 3 and 4 generations of those who hate me. And sin in the Aramaic being an archery term, or meaning something that's off the mark, that those energies that are off the mark, and in essence what these geneticists are now saying is that we're discovering that those things that are off the mark, toxicity, they use a couple of different examples. They use examples of young children who were in the womb during 9/11 with a mother who witnessed the collapse of the towers. And these children are experiencing abnormal stress responses, abnormal cortisol levels, just as though they had been the one who comprehended and experienced that trauma of those towers collapsing. And, you know, this is exactly what's said in the Aramaic, is that these energies that are off the mark are going to be passed on generation to generation. And then the clue is given as to what you can do about it. And that is, it says, of those who hate me. And of course, the me that's speaking there is the Creator, love. Those who are separated from love are stuck with those generational energies that tend to just run from generation to generation and accumulate from generation to generation. When you understand that you can bring the active presence of love to those parts of your mind, you literally change your genetics. And that's an awesome possibility. And the truth is that we are beings of love, and our purpose is to function out of our spiritual beingness, which is love. And we're here with MindShifters Radio to support you in that. If you happen to be in South Florida, come join us tonight. You can check on our website, www.whyagain.com. And we're at Unity in Pompano tonight, tomorrow night, and Friday. And this weekend we'll be doing a 2-day mini-intensive on getting the stress you need, purpose. We're going to be working with this particular tool, the purpose exercise. We'll be doing that and also doing mind shifters and still point breathing. And so we join with you in your healing process, in your experience, in your expression of the active presence of love, and we hold the space for you to have the absolute best year yet of your eternal life.